Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'd like to begin with some brief information about your background. Could you tell me where you went to law school?
Western Reserve, Franklin Thomas Backus School of Law.
And what do you do? What kind of law do you practice?
Well, now I'm a visiting judge in common pleas court.
Are you a solo or a member of a firm, or is that
Well,
your past history?
Yeah, well, it's history. I never was a sole practitioner, but I did practice for a while with a personal injury plaintiff's lawyer, and then joined, we organized the firm of Gold, Oratory, Messenger, and Hanna, which specialized mostly in criminal defense work. Did some other union-related activities. Not that the two were necessarily combined, but it just happened that we had some unions that we knew and needed representation.
How long have you been practicing in Cleveland?
Well, I passed the bar 55 years ago, and I have never left Cleveland. So
How long have you been a member of the law library?
I believe since I got out of law school, no, not. I went from law school to clerking in federal court, and I'm not. I probably did join because the federal court library at that time was limited, would be a nice word, and so I wouldn't necessarily have to come over here at times. So I must have. They must have. Sponsored me and paid for it, because I don't remember paying my dues, but I do remember using the facility. So I guess it's since 1964.
And how did you first find out about the Cleveland Law Library?
I got a job here.
Well, tell us about that.
Well, when I was in law school, of course I was desperately poor, and the tradition had been, and I guess it was maybe Arthur Fisk was a reserve alumnus, I don't know, but at any rate, the law library employed students as assistant librarians. The two that preceded me back and then, in those days, the library was open till 9 o'clock at night. So one of the two student librarians worked from 1 to 5 and the other from 5 to 9. And the two predecessors had been reserve students. And then when they finished, one fellow, the guy on nights, graduated in January, so I got started in January of '62.
What did you do when you worked here?
Well, most important job, but the thing that kept me more consistently busy was the filing of services. There were an enormous number of specialized journals and services dealing with various things from labor law to taxation, and almost on a weekly basis, each one of these services was supplemented, so we had to take the new stuff, take out the old, and that was generally at least a couple hours of each shift, so to speak, so kept us busy, and of course didn't hurt because you were reading something as you were putting it in, so it kind of supplemented your education as well.
How often do you visit the law library now?
Well, relatively infrequently, probably, maybe once a week if I need a case. I like to read paper, and I don't like to read a screen on a computer. I'm just old-fashioned. So I come up here to get a book. But now, of course, they've stopped publishing most of the books, so I have to go to LexisNexis, even though I prefer to be up here.
Would you say a lot has changed at the Cleveland Law Library?
Yes, ma'am. Another thing that occupied my time was making copies of cases for lawyers. We had a machine in the back, a wet process mimeograph machine. It took, at least a minute, maybe a little more of a minute to make each page. Putting the book down, hitting a button. Several seconds later, a light went on, and somewhere, somehow, a photograph was taken. Then you take the paper that you just put down in front of the camera, dip it in the acid, put it through the roller, and another 20 seconds out came a wet picture of the page that you had just photographed. And I think the lawyers had to pay a dime a page. So that was the extent of our copying service back in up until I left in '64. So that's a big change. Also, of course, as I said, the transfer to electronic as opposed to all paper reporting of cases. That's another big change.
Has the Cleveland Law Library helped you with any landmark cases throughout your career?
Well, not me, but I did help in a sense. I mean, not anything intellectually, but running around and picking up stuff for Jack Grant Day, who was a brilliant lawyer. And he wrote here in this library the brief for Map versus Ohio, which is the case that completely transferred all of constitutional history. And he wrote it right here, and he worked nights, so I have plenty of opportunity to bring him back. We used to have way in the back the briefs of all previous Supreme Court cases and the records. So I would go back, and Jack wanted to read the background of one of the Supreme Court cases on this subject of search and seizure. I would go get it, and then, of course, we would talk about it. There wasn't a lot of traffic at night here. At daytime, it was very busy. But usually by 7 o'clock, the traffic petered out, so between 7 and 9, there was a lot of opportunity for conversation without disturbing anybody.
What do you remember about our staff, past or present?
Very helpful, very pleasant, and very knowledgeable. When I was working here, Art Fisk, he knew where everything was. You could not stump him. If a lawyer said, I need X, he would point or take the lawyer to the spot where it was without fail. And that hasn't changed. I mean, everybody that works here has the same characteristic of friendliness and helpfulness. It's nice.
Do you have any other special memories you want to tell us about?
Well, outside of the wet process, not really. It's just that I did get to meet some excellent lawyers. The night shift attracted the real hardworking lawyers that, an 8-hour day wasn't enough for them. They wanted to work more and harder, and so those were good people to meet.
Has a lot changed in legal practice since you started your career?
Yeah, it's business now. It used to be a profession. It used to be the main focus was how can I help this client out of this situation? How can I best ameliorate what this client is going through? Now it's how much money can I get and how much time do I have to spend on this case? It's just a different attitude. I mean, it's everywhere. I mean, the medical profession is a business. It doesn't even resemble what it was 50 years ago. And I'm not saying all lawyers are that way. I'm saying the driving force in the firms is what can you bring in and how much can you, how much rain can you make and how much can you earn. If, by the way, if we win the case, well, that's good PR because people like lawyers that win. But it's just a different focus, different atmosphere. Regrettable, but it's happened generally across the board in our society.
What lessons would you say you've learned in the course of your career?
Never give up. Starting right here. I just enjoyed the research and I would not quit until I'd exhausted every avenue. And I learned it here and I still feel that way. Never quit.
Is there anything else you'd like to add today?
No, except I'm glad this place is here. I'm sure glad it was there 50-some years ago when I was able to make $1.15 an hour, which was helpful for beer money getting through law school.